All right, Sir Chin. Thank you for coming on to my podcast, The Real Talk Experiment. I appreciate you taking out the time of your day out here with the birds because you can hear them, yeah?
That's right. It almost seems like we're in a bird
Yeah.
sanctuary, but
And
yeah.
what I want to do is I want to introduce you to those who might not know you.
Okay.
I'm here with Douglas Chin, pretty prominent figure here in Hawaii. He ran for Congress. He has an educational background from Stanford University. He graduated in 1988 with a bachelor's in English. He attended the University of Hawaii William S. Richardson School of Law, graduated from there in 1995, went on to the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office, then was tapped to be the managing director of Honolulu City and County from 2010 to 2013
Yep.
under Mayor Peter Carlisle.
Yep.
And in that position, he was responsible for 23 municipal government and public safety agencies, about 10,000 employees,
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah.
That was quite an experience.
and a budget which I didn't even realize, like, 2 billion.
Yeah. And now it's actually 2.9 billion. The budget just came out, so only 10 years later than the budget for the city and county of Honolulu has gone up by $1 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll see how that one turns out
Yeah.
after
Especially
COVID.
now. Yeah.
From there, he went on to be a law partner and corporate lobbyist from 2013 to 2015 at Carl Smith Ball, where he dealt mostly with renewable energy and clean technology projects, land use, development projects, and commercial litigation. And then from there, you were tapped by Governor Ige, yeah,
Yep.
for state attorney general. And then in 2018, so this is where I get kind of confused. You became a candidate for Congress in 2017.
Right. Like just at the very end of the year.
Okay, and you resigned as the attorney general to pursue the campaign.
Actually, what happened was I was the attorney general. I was running for Congress, so that was just kind of what I was doing on the side. And then what happened is that I became lieutenant governor by succession because the previous lieutenant
Okay.
governor he stepped down from his position to go into the private sector.
Right.
And so when that happened, then we can go into the story, but basically there's actually this amazing succession plan.
Yeah.
It's like that show Designated Survivor where they basically say that, if one person doesn't if the job is vacant, then somebody else has to move into the slot. And if they turn it down, then the next person has to go, or if they're not available, then the next person goes. So through that succession plan, I was like number 3 or number 4, maybe number 3 on the list.
Think so,
And
yeah.
so then I think it first went to the Senate president, Ron Cucci, who declined it. And I think it's because he's the president of the Senate.
Right,
rather
yeah,
than take
why would you give that up?
Right, yeah, rather than take like what would essentially be a temporary position, finishing out the end of a term, when he could still be the president of the Senate, he wanted to keep doing that. And then it went to the Speaker of the House, which was Scott Psyche at the time, still is. He also turned it down, I think, very much for the same reasons.
Same reasons, yeah.
And as for me, I think I was already thinking about trying to make a move to Congress. I didn't win, but I didn't make it past the primary.
Yeah, well, we get into
we
that
can talk
too.
about that.
Yeah.
But at the time, then I was thinking, okay, well, here's a chance to be able to step up. I mean, someone needs to fill in the position.
Right.
It's a succession plan. So, and so therefore I
And
ended
that's
up
how
taking
you.
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then like you were a candidate for Congress. And we'll get into that one too, hopefully.
Sure.
And then and currently you are the director for Starn O'Toole, Marcus and Fisher.
Yeah, that's a commercial litigation law firm that's here in Honolulu.
And you're a director of that.
It's basically like a partner, so it's the same.
Oh, I
It's
see.
the same term or interchangeable term, but it's like being a partner at a law firm.
I see. Yeah, I was like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because I used to work at a family law firm,
Oh, okay, sure.
Coates and Fry.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But now it's Coates, Fry, Tanimoto, and Gibson.
Right.
Because they
right.
got 2 new guys in there as
Yeah.
partners. And then you were appointed by former Mayor Kirk Caldwell to the Honolulu Police Commission.
Yeah, that just started 6 months ago. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I thought that was
exciting.
cool when I saw it on the news.
Right.
And then, there was some opposition to that. But so I just kind of want to dig into your time at the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office and then kind of being tapped for the managing director for the
Okay.
city and county. So did you became a prosecutor out of the university? Or?
Yeah, basically that's what happened. That was my first legal job after I got out of law school. I don't come from a family of lawyers, so I didn't really know much about what was the what was the right career path to be taking. But I did know what I watched on TV, which was that you had people who were in a courtroom who liked to make arguments in front of juries, and so the best place to be able to do something like that was to either work at the prosecutor's office or to work at the public defender's office. So I applied in both places. And the prosecutor at the time, who was Peter Carlisle, he called me first, and so so then I ended up working there. Started off in traffic court, just like everybody who's there, prosecuting people who speed or don't have their safety check, or or take change lanes too quickly without signaling. That's honestly where everybody in the Honolulu prosecutor starts off to this day. It's the tradition. Then I moved on to handling much more interesting cases, domestic violence, sex assault cases, murder cases. I did about 50 trials during that time, 50 jury trials. I did a lot of regular judge trials, and it was a fantastic experience.
I bet. What is it like being in front of a jury, trying to convince people? It's almost like politics, I feel, right? Like trying to convince people of your version of the events.
Yeah, a little bit. And actually, what I think it is like is there's a lot of trying to explain laws to just regular non-lawyers, regular people who are in the community, and that's actually the great thing about our legal system, is that any decisions that have to be made about whether somebody's guilty or not guilty of a serious crime has to go in front of a jury of somebody's peers. So it's not a bunch of lawyers who are trying to decide whether somebody's guilty or innocent, or not guilty, I should say. But it's people who are who don't know much about the law or necessarily, and you have to teach them about what the different standards are and what the laws are and things like that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've never been summoned to a jury as much as I've always wanted to. I had a letter, and then they said, "Oh, you have to call on this night to figure out if you were selected," and then that wasn't. They said it was settled out of court or something. So,
I think if you, James, knowing all the work that you've done in the community and all the things that you've accomplished in your life, just trying to be involved in things, pretty sure you would be the foreperson. I think if people saw you on a jury, they'd be like, "Let's make this guy the foreperson because he's a go-getter and he likes to."
we don't want to
get involved.
No.
Yeah. It's like that kind of responsibility to have to jump in to do something like that.
How long were you at the prosecutor's office?
So that was a total of, let me count it out. So 7 plus 4. So 11 years, 12 years.
Nice.
Yeah. Of which the last 4 years was basically being the number 2 person. So I was what you call it is the deputy or the chief deputy, the first deputy. There's a lot of different terms for it, but basically it's the right hand guy. So I was Peter Carlisle's number 2 person in the office.
The right hand man. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I can see now, when he ran for mayor and then won, of course. Right. He knew you would be the guy that would get the job done for him.
Yeah. So exactly, and so he, of course, got a phenomenal personality. Just is a very very funny guy. Just very outgoing. Just big time people person. And so when he did run for mayor back in 2010, it was a gosh, what do you call it? It was the thing where the previous mayor had stepped down to run for governor, and so it was. I'm liking out. It's not a regular election; it's a special election.
Oh, special election.
Yeah. So that's essentially it.
Oh yeah. Okay, I didn't even think about that.
So it was kind of winner take all, and I think everybody knew who Peter Carlisle was. He had established quite a reputation for just really going after some very tough criminals and things like that. So when he got elected, then he needed somebody to be kind of his his chief deputy, chief of staff, right hand person, and so there's this title in the mayor's office called the managing director, and I think what people told him was it's more important that you have somebody. I shouldn't speak for him, but this is what I heard from him is that it's more important. It's more important for him to be with somebody that he trusts than somebody who has a lot of experience who he doesn't necessarily know very well. And I think that, and so I think he took that advice because I didn't really know much about the city, and so it was quite a it's quite a lesson, like a real, like drinking from a fire hose or standing in front of a waterfall and just letting a lot of pressure and force come upon you. But that's what it was to go from just kind of being a prosecutor where life was so simple and you're basically like, this is somebody who's accused of a crime, so I've got to find the evidence to find them guilty, to now we're talking about sewers and garbage and potholes and roads and the police and the first responders and the parks and recreation and the beaches and people who are using concessions and selling concessions on the beach or Hanauma Bay. And it's what the city ends up doing is such a large part of the community. And it's not just like your kind of like the regular stuff that you need to be able to to function through life. It's also like all the fun stuff. It's Honolulu City Lights. There's so many things that are involved. And it was I still to this day I say that was the toughest job I ever had.
I bet. And when you were managing director, like how many people did you have kind of like, I guess in your office, your staff?
Yeah, so in the office, it was probably like a dozen people, but this is how the structure of the org chart for the city looks. If you actually look at the city and county of Honolulu and say, what does the organization chart look like? You have the mayor at the top, so there's a rectangle that says mayor, and then right underneath the mayor, there's the managing director. Okay, and the only report up to the mayor is the managing director, and then what you have is 23 city departments. Okay. And all of those city departments report to the managing director. So really, the mayor only has one person who talks to him.
Oh,
that was me.
So nice.
Which was kind of makes sense because then the mayor gets to go. He has to touch the people and go out and be in the community and be an ambassador for Honolulu and sell it and everything. But the kind of the operations and the day-to-day stuff. That fell to that on the organization chart that falls to the managing director. So I think it wasn't so much that I had a staff in the office, but it was that I had these 23 different agencies that are all run by, a very prominent, sharp, brilliant director, very talented director who now is reporting to me and expecting me to know everything that they know. I remember that's when I have journals of like every like a black notebook that I've always kept, and I just keep buying the same black notebook over and over again, and it was just like filled with like, okay, say this to me one more time. So trying to explain this to me and just trying to keep notes and just to keep track of everything. So I learned so much. It was probably the first time that I started learning even more about like what politics was like, because I think before, as a prosecutor, I wasn't really that involved in politics. I mean, it was just, again, all you're doing is just taking in, a case where somebody's been accused of a crime, and then you're trying to figure out whether there's evidence to prove that they're guilty or not guilty. Politics, of course, is when you start working for the mayor's office. Then there's the city council, and there's the state legislature, and that was my first experience of just starting to see, okay, there's this whole public policy world of people who are elected officials, and they all have their own personalities and the things that are very important to them. They all have their different strengths and weaknesses, frankly, and so trying to get anything done means you have to get everything through and get approval of these different elected policymakers. Right. And so again, that was something that I had no experience in, but it was kind of amazing to just really be around so many sharp, interesting people and to be working with them.
Yeah, and that's one of the one of the reasons why I studied my master's in public administration. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we learn about is trying to balance. The administrator's role is to balance the policies and the ideologies of the politicians with the actual administrative operations. Like, so if they say, "Oh, we want to do this," well, then the administrators and they have to figure out like, oh, well, can we do that with the budget, and can we do that with the way the laws are written and things like that? So that kind of fascinates me. How did you balance that?
It would have been so nice if I'd been in college and I learned that. but I think what I told you is that you already mentioned that I was an English major, so and like the kind of, I was totally like liberal arts major all the way. So
Right.
so I just basically studied like Victorian British literature and
Intro to art.
Yeah, they said very little about kind of the balance of public administration. But I think that quickly became apparent. So actually, the way you articulated it was exactly perfect. I don't think anybody ever said it to me in a lesson or anything like that. I wish I'd known that, but I think instinctively, that's what it was all about. It was understanding, look, we're answering to the public. The public expects to have their garbage picked up. They expect to they expect to drive
Chinatown specifically.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I heard from you, or back then. I don't know. I'm not sure if it was back
me.
then, but other people who were
Right.
advocates in the community, and so it's always like thinking about just kind of what the public needs to be able to get through their day. I remember, I'm like paraphrasing horribly, but I remember that some lesson that came from the Obama administration was the idea that the government should actually be very invisible. It should just be this thing that, like, the average person, when I say invisible, I just mean that the average person should be able to go through their day,
Yes.
and their garbage gets picked up.
Yes.
They don't, when they drive on a road, they don't lose a wheel axle or anything
Yes.
like that, because the roads are there. When they call 911, the police show up. There's all those things that you just naturally expect that your taxes pay for are just going to happen. When you
Right.
show up at a park, the grass is going to be mowed. It won't be yellow. It'll things like that.
Yeah.
And so there's that expectation. And that's what I think you'd say is like the operations, like how the city runs. But then it's also just the kind of the vision that a lot of elected people have, whether it's the mayor or the city council or different state leaders. They all have their own vision for what they want to see Honolulu become. Rail, of course, has been a big thing in Honolulu for decades now.
Highly
For
controversial.
decades now, and it was a big deal even back then, because that's when the project was first getting built. So again, you would have a lot of people talking about what do we want the city to be like? Do we want to have mass transit? Is that what we believe in as the way to the future? Is getting everybody out of their cars and into mass transit? Things like that.
And that's interesting too when you talk about the mass transit, because the city was a streetcar city, Honolulu.
Sure.
Mostly
Well, from
streetcars.
way back, yeah.
And then they pave it. They made it because we gotta have cars now. And now it's interesting to see because now we're gonna have the rail, and they want bike lanes everywhere. But
Yes.
the streets just aren't set for that.
Yeah.
But again, it'd be like your role, managing director, and the departments who take the vision of the politicians and try to put it to work with the limited resources that you really have.
Yeah.
And even the budget, it might be $2 billion or whatever it was at your time, but that's, you look at size and scope of the projects and things, it doesn't seem like that would go too far.
And I think one of the things that really hits me quickly is just how, like, a lot of it is like taking the vision and the dream that people have, and then trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to make this happen with all the different roadblocks and obstacles and complications that come up.
Yeah.
So I can't even tell you how many like beautiful drawings I've seen of like the perfect Honolulu complete streets system. And I'm not trying to say this cynically. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. It's just like, this place where, people are like walking, and then there's another lane where people are biking, and then people are sitting, and then they're like, they live right there, and then they go downstairs, and they're, just this perfect kind of urban environment. And honestly, I think a lot of people believe in that kind of world, but it's taking that vision, that beautiful drawing, and then turning it into something that's actually going to happen. Wow, that is like that is where all the work comes, and especially when you have people who oppose it or people have different ideas. Why don't we try this idea? Then how do you keep steering the ship to getting that vision to come about? I'm not. We were just talking about streets, but I mean, you could say the same thing about Aloha Stadium. You could say the same thing about the Blaisdell complex. What's that? I've seen so many beautiful drawings. What should Kapilani Park look like? Ala Moana Park. Like that. That was a thing. Yeah, the new stadium. Kaka'ako back at the time. I mean, that's when all the high rises were first getting built, and of course now we know what it looks like. With all the different, it's very dense and everything. But I remember again seeing like phenomenal, beautiful pictures of what that was all going to be like, and so it's just the rubber meets the road when you actually have to try to make it all happen. So I think that's what's exciting.
Yeah, they do. They come like even because I serve on the neighborhood board.
Yes.
For the downtown Chinatown area, and they come with these amazing, beautiful ideas for the area and what they're going to do, and the pictures always look great. But then we start asking them, well, how's that going to look with what's there now and what's going to go on? Because the pictures, the buildings are new looking and clean, but in reality they're like old. They're from like the 70s, and they're not doing anything with that, but they're just putting a bike lane or something. You're like, I love the idea of these projects, but again, that's the thing that really fascinates me is, like I was saying, like the balance of the vision and then the actual like administering and operating side of the things. Yeah, I don't know, it just fascinates me. But I could just imagine how is it. So let's just say the mayor has a vision, right? I'm not too familiar with Peter Carlisle's administration because I wasn't here. But can you remember any projects or something that you guys wanted to get done? Maybe it's like a park somewhere or something.
I would actually say the biggest thing was getting the rail project started. I think that was probably again, this was like 2010.
Yeah.
So 11 years ago, and so there was a lot of opposition to even building the first column out there in Kapolei. And so there was a lot of just trying to drive that through. The other big thing was that at the time, and actually it's still true, a portion of the rail project isn't just our tax money going into it. It's actually the federal government chipping in money, and so that required a lot of support from Washington, D.C., and of course the late Senator Inouye, who was alive at the time.
Yeah.
He was a proponent of the rail project and getting that funding for Honolulu. And so there was a lot of trying to make all that happen. So I think just that vision of trying to get it going, it was a big deal, and to try to get the funding and try to get the city council to be able to be okay with it. I think that was the big challenge
for Mayor Carlisle at the time. The rail had already been proposed previously.
It had been.
But you guys had to get the ground.
Yeah, we had to get the project started. Yeah. Right. So now whoever's doing, new mayor Blangiardi, I mean, his, probably his, big mission is, how do I end this? It's been going on for so long. I mean, I think, in fact, the mayor in the middle, Mayor Caldwell, I mean, I think his whole thing was, how do I keep the project moving and keep it going? Because, with every new mile of every part that gets dug up, there'd be a new complication. And, something new to be worried about. So he had to keep it moving, and of course the project has been delayed. It's ballooned out of control and costs. I'm not part of that, so I'm just going to stay out of what I think could have happened. I mean, just or why it all happened. But I think now this is a very long-term infrastructure project. But I guess the way I've always looked at it was like H3 always seemed like something that was so out there and could never exist, and that seemed almost like something that people would talk about for decades about how do we connect leeward and windward side, and so when it actually opened up, then it's like, oh, here's H3, and everybody's just using it. And it
I don't have to drive all the way around.
Go into town and then go back over the poly.
I think I don't want to get too much into the rail. I love the idea of a rail. I lived in Brazil and things like this, and the rail system there was so easy. You just walk, get on the rail, go wherever you have to go, get off, catch a bus, go further if you have to. I love the idea, but I think people will use it.
Yeah,
I think so.
I believe in it too, and part of it is because the way the topography of Oahu is such that basically you have a straight line. Like there's like most cities sprawl out. Right? I mean, like LA. I mean, LA is a perfect example of like total sprawl in kind of a scary way.
Yeah.
But even any other city, it's not geographically limited where you just have this one long rectangular corridor.
Yes.
Oahu, the whole South Shore from Hawaii Kai to to Kapolei area, is exactly that. It's one long rectangle.
Yeah,
so it just kind of
That's all
makes
you got.
sense that you would create whatever it was, if it was rail or if it was I mean at the time people were talking about buses or something.
Mm-hmm.
You needed something that was kind of an expressway that would just move a lot of people up back and forth through that corridor with the
Yeah.
airport in the middle, so people can get dropped off there. It just it makes better sense than having a bunch of people randomly in cars getting into traffic jams.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think people will use it. I don't want to get too much into the
I think
bus
people-
and why
yeah,
people don't use that, but actually, depending where you're going, those buses are packed.
Yeah,
They're packed with people. Like people
Yeah,
use
yeah.
the bus. I mean,
yeah,
it just
Yeah.
it just seems like if you live on that side and you work downtown, you would support like the rail because
Yeah.
why would you want to drive into town, especially
Yeah.
if you live over Eva side? Oh, those poor guys. They got one road up Fort Weaver Road.
oh yeah,
But,
that's crazy. But yeah, we've this has become a rail talk.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah,
I'd more
sorry about
I'd marked my career since
It's
Doug Chin's rail talk, which is not really what
and this is how it
I had
always
more
goes.
more than I did this.
Even when I was running
just
for
that.
State House, it would
Yeah,
always
yeah, yeah.
drift into a rail conversation. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so we can talk about other parts of my career.
With so did he run again and he lost?
Correct. So that's then in the actual general election. Then he ran, and then he lost to Mayor Caldwell. And so with that, then I went back into private practice and was kind of thought, okay, well that was my big jump into the ocean of public policy, and I'm ready to just kind of be in the private sector.
And kind of
I was
like,
working at Carl Smith, and yeah. That was nice. But then I got a call from Governor Ige's team about becoming Attorney General, and so that was in 2015, and
That's
that's
awesome.
when I got appointed to
That's
that.
and that seems cool to me. Like, so you went from like the prosecutor's office, which was, I'm sure you were a busy guy, and then you go to just everything being thrown at you, the
Yes.
entire island of Oahu being thrown at you from
Right.
from like you said, like the sewers to everything, and then it's kind of like over,
Mm-hmm.
and then what is it like when you wake up the next day and you're not the managing director? Was there a transition? Like, did you? Was your last day as managing director, and then next day, or
The next day I started my job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You didn't take a vacation?
No, you know what? I had kids. I had to put them through private school, and
true.
I needed to pay the bills. So,
yeah, that's right.
So I didn't really.
You kept hustling.
Yeah.
I like that.
I never had some long sabbatical where I got to travel around the world for a year or anything like that. Never,
In a
never
backpack.
has happened. Never has happened. It's pretty much I end a job and then I start the next day or the Monday after that. I start.
No, that's
start
cool
the new
though.
job.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so Ige taps you, you become Attorney General, and what is that like? Because I feel like when you go from the private practice to like you're an Attorney General, that's like, I don't know, it just seems like a huge title. Like you have so
Yeah.
much like you can file lawsuits against the president's administration, right? Which you did.
Sure. Yeah.
Like that's, I don't know, man. To me, that's like, oh, when you're signing something, like, I don't know, just the power behind that is fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I think it probably helped that I had been doing what I was doing in the city, to not let the power get to me. I think frankly, I'd been humbled so much by all the lessons that I'd learned working in the city as the managing director, that of course, like kind of the wow, gee, they thought of me to do that. That's amazing. So you're just feeling very, flattered and honored in
Right.
that sense. But I think going into the job, I think you asked people around, whether I was throwing my weight around, or I don't think so.
No, I don't mean
people,
like that.
yeah,
I just mean like just like fat, because for me, I studied politics. I was never interested until my mission in Iraq, and that's a whole other story. But I dealt a lot with politicians and leaders from around the world, and it just fascinated me. So that's what made me interested in politics. It wasn't about like the power or whatever, but it's just when you're a broke kid in the city of Pittsburgh, where I'm from, and you don't know what politicians are, you don't care because they're not doing anything you feel for your community. It's just fascinating to know that there are people out there who have these positions to really make change, whether they do or not. But the power of the pen is like they say, mightier than the sword. Yeah. So when I think of an attorney general, the attorney general has such power to,
Sure.
the president's administration with the travel bans and like, I could never fathom that. And or if there's corruption within the state and your ability to go and go after that, like,
Right.
which fascinates me because you don't get security as state attorney general. No, it's just wow.
No, you don't. You don't.
That
In
interested
fact, so actually, that was kind of ironic. Is that we'll talk about the short time I was lieutenant governor, and so I did have security detail then. I didn't have security detail as attorney general, and that was actually the time when I was getting death threats because I had filed on behalf of the state of Hawaii against President Trump. For the Muslim travel ban and just the orders that got issued. And we took the stand based on religious discrimination, ethnic discrimination, felt like that's just a really, really strong value for the people of Hawaii. And it was something that a large portion of the population or their parents or grandparents had gone through during the Japanese internment camps in World War II. And so we felt like, hey, this is an opportunity to really I don't want to say share Hawaii's values, but to just really promote that. And not that we were the only state. There were a lot of other states that got involved. Ours was just the one that ended up making it all the way to the Supreme Court, which is a complicated thing. But that's just how it all worked out. When I got involved in that, it was a very heavily charged lawsuit to get involved in. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that, the president would really, like, as we know now in 2021, would really kind of, rile up his group,
right.
Get them very rabid and intense and kind of say it's okay to basically threaten violence or to be violent. Or I don't think, that's probably saying it, overstating it, but just kind of letting it happen, kind of like, so if there was violence that took place, like in the South or something like that, then he'd say, well, both sides are,
both sides are
kind of like
have
kind
good
of
people
saying,
on both sides,
kind of saying it's okay, and so I think that pass that was given to people, or the people who really followed him, and follow him to this day, that was kind of dangerous. And so it kind of opened it up to, here's this person out here who's, suing President Trump. That's my enemy now. And I think he should die. And I think his family should die. And I remember, we're sitting here in my house right now, but I remember, just going out to the mailbox and seeing, a threatening letter that was very, it was very vulgar. It was pornographic. It was just very scary, and it was just talking about how they were gonna kill me and my family. So I didn't have security detail back then. I was like, oh my gosh.
And are you sharing these with your family?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I didn't show my kids, but I think we. I think that it was just that kind of charged atmosphere. So I don't want to over dramatize my life, because I think we took that letter to our investigators. They kind of figured, okay, this is because they have their ways of checking social media and is this person legit or where is this coming from? It was coming from out of state, so it didn't feel like a legitimate threat, But even though people are telling you this isn't a legitimate threat, it doesn't feel good. It's not.
Well, and you never
want
to take
feeling.
The chance.
Yeah, exactly. You're not gonna. So
Kind of like when the FBI gets a tip that there's going to be some violence and they didn't do anything about it. But
yeah.
you never know because they get a million tips.
Right.
You might have got 1,000 death threats. And
Right.
you never know. One of them might have been the guy. Yeah.
Right. Right.
It's fascinating. Did you request security or Canada?
Nah.
The governor didn't call you like, hey, bro,
No.
you kind of want some security.
No, maybe I joked about it, but I guess I don't know. I think I think it was balanced out. I think especially here in Hawaii. So for I think there were a lot of people in Hawaii who did not like what I did.
Of
Who
course,
just
yeah.
thought
I
this
have.
is a waste of
I'm
your money.
friends with plenty of
yeah,
them.
waste of our money. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You shouldn't get involved. You're over politicizing it. Blah blah blah. But I think that was actually a significant minority here in Hawaii, whereas I think most people there are a lot of people who are just really like, we are with you all the way, and I think that really meant a lot. Whereas I know from my my colleague attorney generals that were in other states, they were in much more purple states where it'd be more like 50-50. So if they were to do something and take a stand on something like this, then basically they've got half the population against them. Or to me, it felt more like 15% or something like that. And so I think for all the negative stuff I got, there was a lot of really, people who were really moved. I mean, like I met with the Muslim families that live here that, they made it all the way from the Middle East out here to Hawaii. They had amazing stories, and just to see how grateful they were. And to actually, I mean, like literally we're talking about true life stories about people who say, my mother can't get back, or my grandmother who raised the grandkids is not allowed to come back into the country anymore. And then to be fighting for that and to realize, well, hey, it easily could have been, a ban against, people who are of, Chinese American descent or,
right.
or Filipinos or something like that. President Trump was arguing with the president of the Philippines back then. And so I think people were thinking he's going to put a travel ban on the Philippines.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, that would have made everybody go berserk. I mean,
I think that one would have, because Hawaii has a lot of Filipinos.
Yeah.
And it's besides the Trump lawsuit that you had, what other types of things, like, because I don't know too much about the position of Attorney General.
Sure.
What is like an average day for the Attorney General? If you can describe
it's a lot. It's a little bit more of that drinking from a fire hose, a little bit more of that like standing in front of a waterfall.
Or wait, sorry.
But
how do you decide what lawsuits you're going to file? Is it like the governor, the state legislature, speaker of the house, they come to you? Hey,
okay, great question. It's all of the above. So I mean, those people are your clients, so they might, they're your clients, so they might be, presenting these ideas. Ultimately, it is the attorney general that decides what they want to do or not do. I think what makes all of that possible, and again, it helped me to be in the city, was to just realize that, you kind of talked about like, oh, there's all these people who end up, doing these like really, really high power positions or, hard, big positions of authority. How do they do it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the lesson that I had to learn was, got to be humble, got to listen, and really let the people who are around you, be advisors to you.
Yeah.
And so whatever lesson I learned, whether it's from my parents or from, my mentors growing up or anything like that, it was always this idea of, you got to be open to advice, and you got to be, don't decide you're the one who knows everything.
Yeah.
And I think that life lesson, has probably served me very, very well because it's always helped me to realize, I gotta depend on people around me who've had a lot of experience, who can see things, who can, kind of point things out. And then on my end, I have to have the judgment to kind of sift through all that and say, okay, this is important. We're going to charge on this. This one, we're going to put, on the back burner, things like that.
And is it kind of like an every day you might be getting something, or? Yeah.
So the average day, was, during the legislative session. So like I'd say from January to April or May, there's just a lot of new bills, new laws that are being introduced. So there's just kind of a lot of basic advice that has to be given throughout that in order to help the legislature or the administration figure out how they're going to put these new laws into effect, or whether there's any problems or any things that needs to be thinking about. Okay, so that's one bucket of stuff. And then the other thing is just kind of like what I'd say, almost like the city, a little bit like the city, is this idea that there's just sort of the day-to-day things that the state does. You know, they run the Department of Health, they run the airports, they do all that stuff.
Yeah, I see that.
So there's a lot of lawyer stuff that happens there. That's another bucket. And then there's another bucket of like, you know, protecting the people of Hawaii. So it's not just like constitutional things, which are important things, but like the Muslim travel ban. But it's also people who are being cheated because their prescription drugs are being are too high. Like the costs, the prices for those are too expensive. And so the pharmaceutical companies are gouging them because they know how much people need these drugs. And so there's that. And so anyway, it kind of falls into these different buckets.
So, pardon me. So I guess, so let's just say a bill goes to the governor. Let's just say legalize marijuana. That's the thing. Okay. Sure. Does he consult you and he says, hey, this is what they want to do. You take a look at the bill and you say, look, federally cannot.
Right.
And then the governor might say, okay, because federally cannot, I don't support it.
Right.
But let's just say he passes it. What punishment does the governor have to withstand from anyone if he makes marijuana legal in the state of Hawaii? Right.
So great questions. And I realize I'm saying right to what you're saying. So let me just explain that. I'm going to become a lawyer now and try to explain why I was saying right.
Well, when you say right to me, I think it's like you
saying,
got it.
Yeah. I'm acknowledging.
You understand what
I'm acknowledging what you're saying. Now I'm going to answer your question.
Or you're like, right, you don't. You're wrong.
Right? That's wrong. Yeah. No. What I like the example that you had, like on legalizing marijuana. So when that came up, what came up was the idea of opening up. During that time, it was the idea of opening up medical marijuana dispensaries, which we now have some of those. Yeah. So and that's now the talk is about just legalizing marijuana, but back then, just even being able to open up medical marijuana dispensaries. The answer is to tell the governor, this is what federal law is saying. Okay, so it's not to say that federal law wouldn't allow a state to do it, but the federal law is saying it's against the law. So if a state passes a law, we're going to have to hash that out, probably in court or with the federal government, because now we're doing something that the federal law is saying is not right. So it's not so much of saying you can't do it. It's just saying this is going to be an obstacle.
The states and the feds separate.
And it's supposed to, right. There's the 10th Amendment, and the feds are supposed to.
But they can always hold the money, I guess. Yeah.
So exactly. So it's not so much of governor, you can do this or you cannot do this. It's more identifying the obstacles, so that way he knows, or she, if it's a female governor, then they would know that this is going to be an obstacle, and they're just going to have to come up with.
So they just have to.
They're going to have to be ready for that.
How to navigate those waters,
Or decide I'm not going to do this at all because I don't want to deal with that obstacle. So that's the thing, and I think the other thing that I would say, because then your other question is, well, what happens if you give advice, and then the decision maker, whether it's the legislature passing a law or the governor allowing something to become a law, what if they just don't take your advice and do something else? They just say, no, we're going to let it become a law because that's how important it is. Well, then I'm going to defend it. I'm going to fight for it.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the thing about being a lawyer is I always think of the movie Aladdin, where it's like you're the genie, but because you're the one who has people would think, oh, you've got all these powers and authorities, but really you're a servant. Like all you're doing is serving your client, and whatever they ultimately decide to do, you just got to back up. Yeah.
That's and I don't want to dive too much into that, but like when people were ripping on the attorneys who defended Trump at his impeachment trial. They were like trying to cancel these attorneys.
Oh yeah.
It's not everyone, whether you like the guy or not, everyone has to have the right to trial, to be defended. But like,
Sure. I mean, I think and I think a lot of lawyers didn't want to represent Trump because I think they felt like he was asking them to like make factual statements that weren't true.
Yeah.
And then I think ultimately the guys who did end up defending Trump, they were trying to focus on a different strategy of just saying that this isn't something that you should impeach a president for.
Yeah.
But I think they always had that problem of they have a client that wants to do things a certain way, and so and so I think that's the other option a lawyer has. I mean, if you can't go along with what your client is wanting, you could always quit. You could always say, I resign. Because
I'm over this.
My conscience won't let me. I can't. I
We've
can't live
done
with
that.
myself if I
When I worked at the family law firm, they've had to do that to a few clients while I was there, because you can't work with them. You can only defend someone for so long before you're like, but you don't understand like this.
Right.
You're probably not going to come out on top, but you can at least come out a little, land a little easy, I guess. But and then I guess the other side. So, if are the congressional delegation, or maybe you don't know, maybe that's more of the governor, but are they aware, like, because I feel like if the governor does pass like legalized marijuana, and I only bring that up because it's something that everyone knows
issue
about
right now. Yeah.
Is it something that then, and again, you might not know, but then the governor has to relay to the congressional delegation, like, this is what we're going to do, because now they have to work within the actual federal government to, possibly get money for the rail or something like that.
100%. And I think that's a lot of that kind of, I'll just say, I think a lot of those behind the scenes conversations have to happen because it's kind of any sort of change that you're making to the system, legalizing marijuana, legalizing cannabis. I think that's what people call it. It's cannabis. It's going to have a ripple effect. It'll make somebody mad in Washington D.C. or
some lobby group.
They'll pass something, and so just being aware. I think that's what I could see, that like being the Attorney General was like trying to identify issues. Not so much passing judgment on something, but to say, here are the potential issues and the obstacles that you, the decision maker, the policy maker, has to think about. And whatever you decide, we're going to back. We'll defend you. Unless you tell us to, lie and cheat and steal, in which case we'll resign. We don't want to do that. But other than that, we're going to try to.
And that's what's cool. That's what I like. That's kind of like why I wanted to do the podcast that I'm doing, because I want to. Anyone can have whatever opinion they have. You can, whatever you want, whatever you're doing in life, great. But I want to. I don't want to interrogate people, but I want to know more. I want to know why. Like, why do people do certain things? What makes their mind work? What do they do? The Attorney General is like, that's fascinating to just learn about. Something you hear about every so often, but I don't really know what the Attorney General actually does, like in a day-to-day thing. So I think it's and I appreciate you filling us in on that.
So here's what I would actually say about the Muslim travel ban, and whether it was something that like I sat around and thought and took a poll and thought about, do people like this, do people not like this? I can tell you right now, like it didn't even, like I didn't even hesitate. Like it was just like it was what I saw, what was happening on TV, and just saw like the what was being said about Muslims, all Muslims are terrorists. And just thought about like, like it'd be so easy for someone else to say, all Catholics are terrorists, or all Jews are enemies of the country, or something like that. And so when the idea or the proposal came to, Hawaii should take a stand and sue the president on this, like I didn't even hesitate. Which some people might be like, that's crazy scary, but like to me, I'm honest. I mean, that's just, it was not even gee, I wonder if we should. I was like, no, we definitely should do that, because like this is something like, one, I actually felt like, and do feel like still, we're going to be on the right side of history. I'm not going to be on the wrong side of history on this. There's no way. Like just from a value standpoint, I am, I don't mean to be arrogant about this, but I'm pretty sure
By
that
all
I'm going to
means.
be on the right end of, knowing how my kids are and knowing how the generations are moving and, just how everyone's evolving.
Who contacted you for that? And is that something that you have to consult with the governor? You have to say, hey, I'm going to file
Sure.
this.
It's so actually, it's the attorney general who ends up deciding what they're going to do, but certainly talk to Governor Ige, who's fully in support of it. Anyway, so that's how that
cool.
works.
That's probably the most controversial thing that
Yeah.
you really had to deal with.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else that.
No, there were, but a lot of different things. But what I would say about that is that the ultimate decision was a 5-4 decision that was against us, that ruled against us. But every judge, every panel that we went up against along the way, all the way up to the Supreme Court, always ruled for us, and almost in a no-brainer kind of sense, like of course this is discrimination, you can't be just blocking people just because of their religion, or what, where they're coming from. So I think that that gave me some hope that even though our Supreme Court actually has become even more conservative, that that's kind of how history works. Time just keeps moving and things keep changing. I mean, gosh darn it, we're in 2021. We have a new president, so we're in a different place right now. So things will be changing.
And for you, you went from the attorney general. You resigned, to focus on running for Congress. And what clicked in your head, and you said, you know what, I feel the need or the want to run for Congress?
Yeah, great question, because I had not run for office before.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, caught up might make it seem too shallow, but I think it was just, I think I felt the same. The anger, the same kind of daily frustration that people, a lot, not everybody, but a lot of people felt during the last administration, and just a sense of, I need to do whatever I can to help make things right. And so one of the things that I saw was that, a way that I could be able to help out is to really be able to, is to get to Washington, D.C. and to be able to be, someone who can be a check on the executive branch and
Right.
the things that they were doing. And so that's kind of what got me motivated to do it. And then probably the second part was just a feeling of, hey, if I've got a shot at doing something like this, and I felt like I did have a shot.
Yeah.
Then I should keep trying to find ways to be able to serve the community and honestly, that's whatever gene that was passed on to me, or my mom always said, we come from a long family of advisors. That's what she once said to me. So whatever was passed on to me, or just lessons that I learned, then it was always kind of like, okay, you gotta try to give back to the community. I see your life, James, and think that that's kind of you've done that as well. That you no matter what you do in your regular work, which is great, you're always starting to think, okay, well then, in my spare time, I want to figure out ways to be able to serve the community and to be able to help my neighborhood. That's good.
Give back in a sense,
give back.
The charitable heart.
Yeah, and we all give back in different ways. Some people give back just by contributing money. Some people give back by just volunteering at their social organization or church or something like that. And I think because I started to have this opportunity to be able to be involved in the public policy government world, I started to have more of a vision of, hey, I can be able to give back in this way. I should say right now, because I'm starting to sound like I want to run for something. I'm not interested in running for something. So James, you heard it right
Doug
here.
Chin, would you like to announce anything?
No. So you just heard it here.
But I've
in a different place right now. So I just,
But that's kind of what it is. Like, and I think once you are in the political world, like you were a managing director, you might not have been a politician per se. I would still consider that a politician, because you're kind of between the politician and the administrators. I think once you do that and you start seeing the changes in the community and you realize these roles are very specific to making the change,
Right.
I think it just kind of sticks with you.
Yeah, well, and I think some of it is just realizing that you can swim in the pool. Like you can, like I can, like I think previously, if someone 20 years, like in law school, I never was involved in student government. Like that's, which is really funny because, you know, like, yeah, I was not in, I mean, I was probably the last time I was in student government was, you know, I was the president of my elementary school student council. And then I was class treasurer in high school. You know, that was like my big runs for election. But I think in college or in law school, if you said, oh, you're going to have a government life, I would have laughed. I never saw myself doing that. And a lot of it is because I just, you know, say, I could never run in that circle. I mean, how could I even keep up with that or stomach it? You know, because I mean, a lot of people look down on it, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's just people who are just, everyone is
They're
just
all
a
corrupt.
lying, corrupt, you know, person. And I think like getting involved in city government and state government, then you actually start seeing that all these famous names or all these people who are in the news, they're people. Like they're, you know, they've got their egos, they've got all the different things going on, but they are people at the core. Yeah. And so once you start understanding, you know, the governor is a person, the mayor is a person.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like the you know, all the different, you know, the leaders in the legislature, they are people. Then I think some of the intimidation factor about all that, you know, like the congressional delegation, they're you know, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
They are people, you know,
they're just people, man.
and you know, they've been, you know, whatever, you know, talent or circumstances or luck has been thrust into their life, that they are now being able to take on these very, very important roles. But at the end of the day, they are people, and to feel like less intimidated by that, then that's what makes me think, you know, okay, you know, this is, you know, I can hang with this, you know, and I can be helpful. You know, I don't have to be scared of it. I can be helpful if you know, if I ever get the chance to do that.
Oh, that's, and you are very humble. But I think those are.
I'm super humble.
Yeah. Oh, please tell us how humble. you are.
Yeah. I can't even express to you just how like I'm the most humble person.
I just think like I think those kinds of people make better politicians. The ones who didn't really want to do it, they just kind of like maybe had something click, or someone said, oh, you should, you know, you seem like you could run and win. For whatever reason, they just were never so interested in politics. And then they get in because their mindset is different. I think people who have just worked in government their whole life, or have only worked for politicians, you know, they have a different mentality.
Right.
You know, it's even like with when you have politicians who just kind of like, maybe they just have a government job out of college or something, and they've never had to like own a business, things like this. I don't know, just they just don't have in my opinion, like a real world view of how policy will affect,
right,
you know, the actual economy.
Right.
But I just think it's when people ask me like why I wanted to run, I say because I am so fascinated by so many things. I belong to so many different groups.
Yes.
Because they're all doing different things that I find interesting. I said, but you know, when I go to work, it's just my one thing. I'm just focused on that one thing at work. I said, but in my mind, if I were an elected official, I could now do full time every day, all day, all the, you know, working with the homeless organizations to try to figure out what they need, you know, working with other, you know, sides of the government, and, you know, what can we do to make this better and that better? You could do so much more than I can just, you know, at my everyday 9 to 5, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why I've always wanted to run, because, you know, I see like, okay, the homeless sleeping all over Chinatown. Okay, I want to work on that. But also I want to figure out, you know, how do we support small businesses? What can we do? Let's get some research. How can we raise the minimum wage and not impact the businesses so negatively?
Yeah.
And not lose jobs, you know, things like that. You know, I would love to just focus on that full time, but you know, cannot. And then, so I have to ask, you were Attorney General, you became Lieutenant Governor.
Yes.
Explain a day in the life to the Lieutenant Governor for me, because I still think it's fascinating. Like, you get, is it 24-hour security?
Yes. Well, it's 18-hour days.
18
18 hour security.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they drop me off at home, and then they pick me up in the morning.
Oh, okay. So they're not like staking out your house
No,
at night.
unless I'm on a trip.
Oh wow, that's fascinating.
It was like so first of all, they're awesome. So I don't want to embarrass them, but the lieutenant governor's security detail is the best. They're just
Oh, really?
wonderful people.
I know.
And you get very close to them. Like you just really like love them, and so it's because they become kind of part of your family. And I, like literally, I was only lieutenant governor for 10 months, but it was that short. But it was like it was a little bit like a dream. I can't believe that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Still,
Because I just feel so. I know some of the. I don't know them like personally, but say hi and talk story when I like some of the guys on the governor's detail.
Yeah,
super chill.
They're so cool.
And they're I feel like they would throw me through a building.
Yeah.
They're just so like
Right.
wow.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
But
You know, it was a great experience. You know, I was really honored to be able to be involved in that. You know, got involved in some stuff with. Anyway, I don't want to talk about all the stuff I did. It's just that's what you know. It was a great experience.
I'm just curious, like, what was it like? So when so I'll do it since the speaker or the Senate president and the speaker said no. So then you were next in line. So you said yeah, and then what was?
I'll tell you the thing. I've got a great story. Is that next day I was supposed to help out at the Punahou Carnival. So I was supposed to volunteer at the Punahou Carnival.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I said, okay, I'll do it. And then like next thing I know, it's like 6 a.m. and there's like all these cars outside in the driveway, and it's the security detail saying, we're going to take you to the Punahou Carnival. Is that because we understand that's what's, you know, you're taking a vacation day because you're going to be volunteering there at that. And I was like, oh, hello.
You didn't know they were coming?
I mean, I kind of got an idea. I mean, I knew, but still, it was just kind of like the first experience. And then kind of like, you know, son, wake up. These people are going to bring you to school.
Oh, they take your kids to school?
Yeah, because they do what you would do during the day if you had a car.
Oh,
you know, so
wow.
so it's stuff like that. So in other words, instead of me, like, because I would be driving my son
right
to school, you know, to do something, then I would be going to work. That's how you know, we wouldn't just be like, son, walk. Like,
you gotta walk.
Dad
to
has
school,
to.
bro. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
And are they staying around the school during the whole time, or?
No. Then they'd be with me, right? Then they'd go. You know,
interesting.
Then they go.
Oh, okay. So they're not really necessarily protecting the kids.
Right. They're protecting
just
what the lieutenant governor or the governor is doing with their day as they.
Because they can't have you drive into school and something happens. Yeah.
Right.
Like car accident or something ridiculous.
Right.
Interesting. Right. Yeah, I always wondered that. I never asked you, but I always wondered because I remember I saw you. I saw you. I think it was there was somewhere in downtown at that building by the pier. Oh, there was some event.
One of the tower or something.
It was like it was some union. I don't know if it was like a meet and greet or what it was, but I just remember I see the big Suburban pull up. Security guys come out. You were kind of cheesing. You're like, hey.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty cool. Because when I was in Iraq, that's what I did personal security detail.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Like we were super close to our generals that we protected, and they were super cool. And
it's kind of an amazing thing. You know, it's I have another great story. It's that I'm going to say this is that like running for office is a really, really scary thing. Running for Congress, super scary. It just makes you feel very exposed all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody is looking at you. Everybody's judging
you,
you, figuring stuff out. And I remember feeling very, very intimidated by that. And so you know, and so there's actually this like beautiful kind of like spiritual type song that talks about like, you know, how like wherever you go, you know, your higher power is in front of you and your higher power is behind you. And that's kind of like meant to like encourage you to like, wherever I go, then, you know, my angels are in front of me.
Yeah,
they're
they
behind
got
me. Yeah, they got me. They
Yeah.
got me. And so that actually like, I remember really touched me because I kind of had a physical example of that. Like I could experience that where I go,
yeah,
you know what,
true.
I got somebody in front of me and I've got somebody behind me. And I should actually kind of, I haven't thought about that for a long time, but I remember that really meant a lot to me. And it, you know, kind of, I'm going to remember that now, even though I don't,
that's
you know,
awesome.
that's, you know, like, you know, if you believe in that stuff, then, you know, you have those you know, you have those guardians that are in front of you and behind you no matter where you go. And I thought that's
Kind of puts you
nice.
at ease, makes you a little confident.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know,
And then what
helps you to
was-
be able to focus instead of on your fears, than to be able to like focus on, you know, what can I do? What can I contribute? And I think that helped.
Oh, that's cool. And then, as a lieutenant governor, what kind of like? So most people, I think, when they think of lieutenant governor, they think of, you know, cutting ribbons.
Yep.
You know, photos.
A little bit of a backup quarterback thing going on for sure.
Did you
for
enjoy
sure.
that?
It's okay. It was good. You know, I mean, frankly, I think being attorney general was more exciting. But you know, I also, I mean, I think there's a great opportunity to be able to champion some different things. So I got involved in like, you know, agro, you know, farm to table type stuff. You know, just trying to really push for local agriculture. Some of that had been done by my predecessor, so I was keeping that going.
Yeah.
And then the other thing had to do with opioids, which was like me taking an agenda that came from the attorney general's and kind of shifting that over to the lieutenant governor's office. And so those were, you know, I mean, it was a really short time, but I got to be able to help out with those things.
In 10 months, you say?
Yeah.
It was 10 months?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
pretty
crazy.
awesome.
That time goes fast, no?
Yeah. Now, speaking of time goes fast, I'm not going to let you talk to me for more than an hour because I do not think people want to hear me talk for more than an hour. So, let's talk about police commission.
Let's
Okay.
let's do that. One more thing.
I was actually thinking about it because I was thinking about, you know, like all the top 20 podcasts out there. Like they talk to like these huge big stars, and they, you know, like
No, you
those
know-
guys only talk for an hour. So
I
nobody
think-
wants to listen to me talk for an hour.
I think the best is because you let people get deep.
Yeah.
And then people can learn more. They can always fast forward through.
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
the other side is that you can clip it down into sections.
That's true.
You know, Doug Chin tells James Logue how amazing he is.
How phenomenally humble
Yeah,
he is.
yeah.
Yeah. So humble.
Honolulu Police Commission.
Yeah. So that, you know, I mean, I think that to me is like the perfect, just a great balance for what I'm trying to do right now. So I'm back in the private sector. I'm not, just let me say it one more time, I'm not interested in running for anything. Right now I'm just trying to, you know, I'm working in the private sector and trying to pay for my son's college, trying to pay off my daughter's college. You know, it's kind of like the life mission these days. But there's still a part of me that wants to give back. And so I was really just thrilled when former Mayor Caldwell appointed me to be on the police commission. Really appreciated the city council for confirming me. And so I feel like here's a great time to be involved as someone who is formerly in law enforcement, prosecutor's office, attorney general, you know, with all the things that have happened in the last year. You know, with Black Lives Matter, with body-worn cameras really showing, you know, a lot of, you know, unwarranted killings that have taken place. You know, here's a chance to be able to, you know, have an impact in the community through the police commission. So I've been able to get involved with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just want to say the article from the Civil Beat about says police commissioners want HPD basically to redirect funds to social services and cut overtime.
Yeah, so that was actually first of all, I think the approach that we were taking was that we're a citizen group.
Yeah.
And we're trying to, you know, one of the things that the charter says the police commission is supposed to do is they're supposed to look at the budget and then make recommendations to the mayor about what the police department budget is, or what it's going to be. And so we looked at the budget, and we were also looking at like some of the things that were happening around the country, and then also just trying to think about what different priorities are happening right now. And so one of the recommendations that the group made up, so it's, you know, part of a group,
Yeah,
so
it's a group effort.
group
Yeah.
effort, that what we all came up with was, you know, hey, now's the time, you know, like 21st century policing is something that you know, Chief Ballard has been a big proponent of, and so we really wanted to encourage the mayor and the chief to be thinking about you know, a task force that could be starting to think, okay, we have a certain structure of the police department that has always been it's been this way, you know, the organization chart has been the way it's been for a very, very long time. now we are getting a lot more feedback from the public about trying to really focus on people with mental health needs, who are homeless, who have issues with drugs, substance abuse, domestic violence, things like that. Maybe instead of just sending out your regular police officers who are all awesome, who are putting their lives on the line, but maybe don't have all the special skills to be able to do that. Why not think about how to redirect those funds to be able to get more specialized either police force or human services people to be involved in that.
And when I read that article, I said, "Oh, that's brilliant."
Yeah, and I'm the first to say it's a vision. It's almost like a pretty drawing, what I was talking before. So the devil is completely in the details, and there's a lot that's very complicated about that. But we were just trying to do our best there.
And it's not like some people confuse with like defunding. Take all the money. It's not that. But there are why should people have to? I don't know. I just don't think like police they're not equipped to deal with mental health issues and things like that. Right. That's not why they became police officers. So
right.
Instead of putting all these programs in place and all this money thrown at these programs that these officers have to be involved in, get somebody in the social service world who can provide that. Okay. Right. Yeah,
there you go.
I'm interested to see what happens with that. So, Doug Chin, before we wrap this up, is there anything you'd like to announce? Maybe
no, absolutely not. And
if you have anything final you'd like to say or anything like that,
I think the final thing that I would say is thank you for all of your contributions to the community. James Loeb.
I appreciate that.
You're awesome.
Appreciate
and
that.
And just the way that you're someone who has grown into this community and is just really trying to do whatever you can to be able to give back. I think that's just really special.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I don't think my headphones will fit now. My head got so big.
Yeah. You're like the most humble guy that I know. So it's just really, it's really awesome. Except
Cool.
for me.
Yeah.
So that's
I appreciate it, Doug.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Sure.
coming on my podcast. And then I hope whoever's listening enjoys it as well. And until next time, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.